It's well understood that there are great tensions between Indigenous people as traditional custodians of Australian land and the interests of development. In this case, Country Energy had been contracted to provide electricity to a new mining concern, and this would mean erecting large transmission lines. To obtain approval, Country Energy were required to commission a study to identify any Indigenous artefacts of significance, and they were required to consult with the local Aboriginal community regarding the work covered by the permit or consent and respond to any reasonable request to involve the Aboriginal community in the work. The archaeology report was completed by a Dr. Pardo and approval was granted, but then the approval was successfully challenged by Mr. Neville Williams, a Wiradjuri man who claimed that he should have been consulted. Country Energy appealed, but in the meanwhile they did arrange for Mr. Williams to inspect the areas and provide submissions. Mr. Williams did so, but maintained that he had had an inadequate opportunity to inspect the area properly. The matter was appealed to the New South Wales Court of Appeal on a number of grounds, but one of those was whether Mr. Williams was entitled to procedural fairness and whether it had been afforded to him. The court didn't really directly address this question, but pulling together the threads, the court's view was that while the legislative requirement to consult with the local Aboriginal community and the conduct of Country Energy in seeking his views might have suggested an entitlement to procedural fairness, Mr. Williams merely had a hope of being consulted, not an actual right. Justice of Appeal Baston said, Dr. Pardo was at least on notice that Mr. Williams and his group might assert interests in the corridor. No explanation has been given as to why Country Energy decided to consult Mr. Williams after the survey had been completed, but not before. An inference is that Mr. Williams was more strongly opposed to the Lake Cowell Gold Project than were the representatives of other Aboriginal groups. That would not, of course, justify a refusal to consult. Mr. Williams' complaint was legally conceived, but the conduct of Country Energy may have led him to believe that he was being arbitrarily and inappropriately excluded from a legally essential process. In other words, Country Energy could have handled it better, but Mr. Williams had no actual right to procedural fairness.